Hi, all. I welcome you to the Building Culture podcast where I invite incredibly smart people who build things. Whether they be engineers, entrepreneurs, programmers, hobbyists, or researchers, it does not matter. As long as you're someone who is passionate about building, I'll find you and podcast you. And in today's episode, we have a very special guest who is a freelancer and an independent consultant in the space of robotics and drones. He also runs his own newsletter in the area of robotics and is incredibly passionate about drones and robotics in general. Today's discussion will mostly feature about his experience, how he got started into freelance consulting, his previous experience, what inspires him about robotics and drones, and his personal motivations. So, without any further ado, let's welcome Mateusz Sadowski. Let me know if I pronounce your name correctly.
Yeah, you pronounce it well enough. Yeah, you can call me Matt as well. It's usually
Matt.
what
So
people
yeah,
do.
okay. I'll
Yeah,
call you Matt. Yeah, but I just wanted to give an attempt of pronouncing your full name.
yeah. No, you are really close, really close.
Okay, how
And
is it pronounced actually?
Mateusz.
Mateusz. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. That's like a full Polish pronunciation
Ah,
here.
that's good.
Yeah.
Okay. So my very first question would be, what was the first project that you did in robotics?
Mhm. So first project, like proper robotics project, would be actually using Lego Mindstorms on university. So as part
Okay.
of the university class, we did play quite a bit with Lego Mindstorms, doing some mechanical and sort of programmatic tasks. So this would be like first proper robotics project that I did. Um, yeah, and also I started in studying in 2009. So I think it was before the time of Arduino and Raspberry Pi, and if they were there, they were not so popular and definitely not accessible. So since then,
Okay.
quite a bit changed, I think, for people.
Okay, so you started building robots by using Legos, which was a part of your curriculum, and after that you have now you have an established career in robotics, and you are doing freelancing in a consultancy in this area. So, what was it about that activity or that assignment that inspired you, or was it that you did a lot of other different projects later that led you to decide that okay, this is the field that I want to go in?
hmm I think it was like the biggest inspiration for me was around 2011. You've seen these videos of drones flying through hops. So I think
Okay.
it was something that really inspired me, especially that like long time before I even started thinking about robotics, I was considered. I thought that I would love to fly fighter jets, and it was something that you could actually. It would be a good replacement, minus all the military stuff and doing bad stuff, basically.
Okay.
So that's something that started motivating me a lot, and since then, since that time, I was really focused on drones most of my studies. So it was probably 3 years of focusing quite a lot on drones at that time when I started.
Okay, so basically you wanted to build fighter jets, fighter drones, and do military stuff, but at the same time, their aspect that it could be, it would not be an ethical thing to do. This is what
Yeah.
made you decide that okay, I would go on to build drones, but I don't necessarily have to go in the fighter jets area. But your main inspiration was to build fighter jets.
Not I thought it would be cool thing to do. like because of the speed and agility, and technically that those things would be super challenging. But I was never interested in doing things that are meant to do harm to people.
Yeah.
And But I saw these really fast flying drones and thought that, wow, okay, this is basically fighter jets that are available to everyone, and it's fast, it's agile, and it also, as I later learned, they can be used for good. So yeah, all the good stuff from fighter jets probably.
Okay. So
Yeah.
once you decided that you want to be building drones, then did you immediately start to build a hobby project on your own, or did you enroll yourself in a course? What did you do once you were clear about this?
So first thing I started doing was basically, I picked up my master thesis very early on. So I had 1 year left to submit it. So usually in our university it was half a year when you were working on your thesis, but I started way earlier. And together with a friend, we started developing an architecture for basically a micro drone.
Okay.
So basically something that would fit on your palm. And then we were looking into software, basically the ground control station stuff. So the desktop software that you would use to interface with the drone. And yeah, that's where we started. And then this also led me to have an internship in a company in Poland producing drones, which was one
Okay.
of, I think, two or three companies at the time working with drones in Poland. Um,
That's interesting.
yeah, and after that, I did half a year of my master's. So after I finished my bachelor's, and then I went to Norway for Erasmus exchange, and there I also focused on drones. And this time my project was related to using a LiDAR on a drone for some mapping or things like that. So it was really like I continued on this path, and yeah, well, probably never
So
stopped really. Yeah.
so that's like a very logical way of going about it. You've found that okay, this is the thing that I want to do, and then you took all the steps, including choosing your master's thesis and going for your internship in only that particular area. Normally what people do and students do is that they might have a few interests, but searching an internship and getting a job in uh, the particular area in which you are interested in is also not very easy. So they take any internship that they get that may be more or less related to it, but may not be, and then they kind of wander around the area, around
Mhm.
different areas, and are not really sure. So I think a major important thing to learn from your journey is to be clear on what you want so that you can take all the next actions that help you achieve that goal.
Mhm. Yeah, and I really recommend that. So it took me basically months of research to find the companies and then try to get in touch with a person that makes the decision there. So uh, it was quite tough, but it was well worth it because it set me on this path. And another kind of maybe a kind of tip here, when I finally was on the phone with the person making decision, he asked me a question: "What do you know?" And at that time, I was like, I don't think I know anything really. But because I wasn't prepared to answer a question like that. So I think it's like knowing what you know is really good when you are on a call with someone who is going to hire you. So I would really recommend that.
Okay. And after having worked in the industry for quite a few years, then you decided to change to having an independent consultancy business and doing freelance projects. So what made you change your direction?
Mhm. Um, I wouldn't say that it was really a change of direction. Like it was a not for me. It was a logical next step
Okay.
for the point where I was in. And my main motivation at the time was basically I wanted to have more control on the things that I do. Because usually when you are in the company, uh, if you are not like if you are not a senior or really person making like CTO level, most likely, you don't have full control over the decisions. Um, so for me, this was my main motivation because I wanted to basically have full control is the right way to say it. Uh, and one of the triggers at that time for me was the book that I've read, and the title is "Let My People Go Surfing."
Oh,
It's
what is this
basically
book about?
so it's basically starting a business. It's a book by the founder of Patagonia, so the clothing company,
Ah,
uh,
uh-huh.
and basically the way he goes about the business is that it's grown really. I would say it's an organically grown business, uh, and with environment in mind. So basically, they care about the environment. They try to reduce waste and make sure that what the processes they use are as good as they can be. And at the same time, they care a lot about people. So they wouldn't. So their motto, at least what you learn in the book, was that your job when you are an employee of the company is to basically do your job. And if the weather is nice and you can go surfing, and if you would like to, and all your stuff is done and you are all up to date, you should do it. You should live your life and basically um, make sure that you are happy. Um, and around this time, my girlfriend was needed to go to the hospital, and I drove her to the hospital. I left her there, and then I came back to the company because I needed to work. And I was sitting there, not being able to focus, and I was thinking to myself, "What am I really doing here?" And this was I like all these things made me reevaluate my priorities and decided that, well, I will either try to find a company that has a similar approach to Patagonia in some of the ways. And if this doesn't work out, I'm trying to doing freelance or consulting on the side anyway, because what can go wrong? Yeah.
So that's quite interesting. So now you got inspired from this book, and surfing here is symbolizing, I guess, freedom to do anything you want at your pace, right? So what the book mentioned is that once in Patagonia, for example, that's the thing, that once you finish your work, you can go out and do surfing or do anything that you want. You have that freedom. But a lot of companies have a more rigid work schedule from 9 to 5.
Hmm.
So your
Yeah.
primary motivation was to just have more independence in your lifestyle and to do the kind of projects that you wanted to do, because in a company you have to, I mean, there might be a lot of interesting things to do there as well, but at the same time you have to kind of conform to the activities that are going on there,
Hmm.
so you
Yeah.
don't really have that much freedom.
Yeah, and one other thing that motivated me as well is I felt I wasn't growing as much as I would like, because it all depends on the projects you are working on. If you are doing the same thing over and over again and you are
Yeah.
not growing, um, the good thing about freelancing is that hopefully you have an ability to choose contracts you want to work on. So if you are in a good place as a freelancer, you can decide to work on the projects that actually fit your personal interests. And I think this is the one of the best things about freelancing, because you can decide that you want to go here, and then you can take projects that will take you exactly to this point where you want to get. Uh, but also this assumes that availability of the projects that can help you get there.
Yeah, so you can create your own path in a way. So you decide that okay, I want to, for example, be an expert in mapping and localization. Just giving a
Yeah,
random example. So you can choose those projects along the way and then grow yourself.
yeah,
So
uh,
the
yeah. One thing I want to say that it's really it sounds easy, but it's not that easy.
it's not
It's
that
like
easy. I mean, it
yeah,
doesn't even sound easy to be honest. I
yeah,
mean, it's because for freelancing and I mean, what you do, you don't really just have to focus on your technical skills. You probably also have to market yourself, right? And you have to put yourself out there. So and you know you have to build your profile on these platforms and you know make sure you have the credibility. So there's a lot of things going on, but we'll go into more details on you know how you work and all those things.
mm.
So now, how have you evolved over the past 5 years being in robotics?
uh, yeah. I would say it was quite a ride. Um, uh, well, because yeah, first job that I had was related to robotics, and but was mostly focusing on desktop software development for robotics. And it was quite a wild ride, I would say, because since I was studying on mechatronics, but on mechanical faculty,
Hmm.
so we were always like mechanics was the main thing that we were learning, and software a bit, but it would a lot of this would depend on the teacher. So I had some view on software, but the first job I got was really focused on software. And even though I was focusing on software quite a bit during university on my own, I had really quite a lot of catching up to do. So starting with my first job, I was looking into good programming practices, like learning Git. Basically learning C sharp almost from scratch and so on. Um, and the thing I was not so lucky with is lack of mentorship. So I never had a proper mentor. So I had to do everything on my own. Um, and this caused basically that I was often coming back home from work, and then I was studying just to make sure that I'm as as proficient in the tools I'm expected to use as possible. And yeah, it was quite a lot of hard work, but it got me where I am today, and it also showed me how good it is to have a good mentor. Well, because I didn't have one, uh, but it inspired me to be basically to always when I work with people to always try to be the mentor I didn't have, and uh, it was a rough path, but in the end it worked out quite good, and I think it also helped me uh, being more relevant to junior people that I work with.
So it must have been a real struggle because you had to take out time and build the skills on your own. So you learned all those programming languages that you're talking about, C hash and the other ones on your own, or a part of it was also taught at your university.
Uh, So I took an additional course on C sharp in the university. So it at least got me started. But then, and also I did a class on C++, Python, probably not. So Python I was learning on my own.
Okay.
But also the C++ that we learned in school was ancient, basically, like not relevant anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's has been always lots of catching up to do. Well, there still is, it never ends, I think.
Yeah, you are always learning, right? So,
Yeah.
but also the thing is, I mean, since your journey is also quite inspiring because you had to, learn things on your own and had to, build up to that level so that you can offer your services. So it must have been also, you must have grown as an individual personally as well, being persistent, and putting in the hours every single day, despite the other things that you have had to do. So what is the one thing that you took out of this journey? I mean, the one growth aspect that you had from this.
Hmm. Um, well, I think it's not. Yeah. Um, well, it might sound awful to some of the companies, but really, one thing that I took from it, like being working so hard, is that if your job pays you for 9 to 5 work, do the 9 to 5 work, unless there is really something urgent that needs to happen, like the project is getting late or something else like that, then it's okay to put some extra effort. But if you get paid for doing 9 to 5 and you don't get paid overtime or you don't get extra holidays for the time that you spend in the office, uh, go home and do other projects that make you grow. If you feel that the work you are doing in the company doesn't grow in the direction that you want to go to. Uh, so yeah, it's not really technical, but that's what I've learned, and lots of companies and people won't appreciate it that you are not in the company for 10 hours a day. Uh, but on the other hand, it's good to put these boundaries, because if I work 8 hours, I will most likely be more efficient than the person working 10 hours. So I would say, of course, it depends on the people, but you cannot be focused 10 hours a day for a prolonged period of time.
Yeah.
So it's better to be well rested for work, do your 8 hours uh, with your high efficiency, and then go home and either relax, or if you feel like you are in the phase that you need growing, study a bit more for yourself, and then relax, because this is also very important, because this should be you shouldn't overlook that, because you need to be well rested. Otherwise, you are not learning, you are not super productive. So yeah, stay well
So, but
rested.
in that's a good advice. But in Germany, and also probably in Switzerland, the laws do not allow the employee to work more than 40 hours a week, right? So 8 hours per working day. So, it, or am I mistaken with that thing?
Uh, I haven't worked in a company that would be like this, actually. I've
Okay.
heard that these are rules, especially when you work for the bigger companies. But the companies I worked for were always less than 50 people, I would say.
So
Uh,
startups mostly.
and yeah, some of them startups. So it wasn't enforced really.
Ah, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, for established companies, I think these are more strictly followed. For startups,
Yeah.
probably it's, yeah, also an urgency is required because sometimes you
Mhm.
have to deliver more. So probably, Yeah, it cannot be followed for a startup. Yeah. So also now let's talk a bit about robotics in general. So what are the industries that are being impacted in robotics? Okay, but before that, so now you are in the software aspect of robotics, or do you also take up projects in the the mechanism part of robotics,
Uh,
for instance?
yeah, so I do only software currently. Of course, because this is robotics, so you have software that interfaces with electronics, that
Yeah.
interfaces with mechanical system. So even though I do software, it's all comes together, like all these aspects. So you need to make sure that what you are doing with actually work in a physical world.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So just software for robotics is probably not enough. If you want to do general robotics, like doing software for almost anything you can think of. Uh, but of course, there will be like small niche where it's just pure software and you can do lots of stuff just in software.
Okay.
But I tend to
So
do be this generalist, so having approach to like software for all the aspects of robots.
yeah. So yeah, mostly software, but in robotics you have to deal with hardware, but not in the design part of it, just the software uh, interfacing with the robot or controlling it.
Yes.
So what are the industries that are, being impacted by robotics, or the new industries that are using more robots?
Mhm. So I would say like the obvious answer here is manufacture. So
Yeah.
manufacturing, you have assembly lines. There's lots of cobotics coming up now. So lots of this is already happening. Uh, there's also quite a bit going on in agriculture. So there are more and more startups and companies focusing on agriculture. Uh, what many people don't know is that it's already out there. So you have tractors that will follow your field autonomously using
Okay.
GPS. So you know that the tractors are really advanced, but yeah, and farmers use them every day. And uh, I really like agriculture as an example because this is where robotics can make huge impact, especially if we are thinking about organic farming, because with robots, hopefully in the future, well, there are already some companies doing that, but you could mechanically remove, uh, mechanically remove, how is it called? I'm missing one word in English right now, but
Uh,
basically the undesired greens from your crops. And
okay. Okay. The weeds.
yeah, weeds, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So this is a huge game changer because suddenly you don't have to use all these pesticides, and you can
Okay.
grow more organically. And maybe you could even use this for some of the pests as well. Um, but I'm not sure anyone is doing that at the moment. And another thing that's quite big in agriculture, and I think it's already a solved problem, is it's called precision agriculture. So basically, you are still using pesticides, but you use, for example, drones to map the field and see which plants need more fertilizer or pesticide. And then you apply the pesticide only where it's needed. Because right now you just assume, okay, pesticide goes all over the field, right? And
Yeah.
if you use precision farming, you just apply it where it's needed. So we
So
can
more efficient.
reduce, yeah. And yet another thing about agriculture that I think a lot is when we are using big tractors, the soil gets compacted because of the weight of the tractor.
Okay.
But with robotics, assuming we have electric robots that can do some work in the field, you could maybe like move
Have
lots
light.
of them in the field, yeah, and have quite a big of scale, and then achieve very similar effect, but without compacting the soil,
Ah,
which is good for the crops and for the any like small animals living in the soil. So I'm really excited about these changes, and I'm really keen to see what happens out there.
so agriculture is impacted in new ways by means of robotics. Are you also working on some agriculture based projects?
Yeah, so I have customers every now and then who look into that kind of stuff. There's also, if you are using ROS, there is basically a ROS agriculture project. That's objective is to create autonomous tractor that is based on ROS. And the community there is really good. You can join the Slack channel and basically have conversation about agricultural ROS, which is quite exciting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Quite interesting. So the main areas in robotics are, uh, related to agriculture, and also are there applications in medical, surgical robots are also popular. So what are the other areas that are using more and more robots these days? Of course, manufacturing is like the primary one.
Yeah. So this year, because of the pandemic, there was quite a big uptake on mobile robots for disinfection or handling
Yeah.
the patients. And I think this is a really good idea. Well, there are some things you need to consider with those disinfectant robots that use UV light because it's dangerous to humans. So as robot designers, we need to take this into account to make sure that, okay, you shouldn't operate this in the environment where humans are actively present.
Hmm.
Um, but I'm hoping that we'll have some more personal robots projects happening. The biggest one I can think of is Roomba, which is probably the number
Yeah.
one selling robot in the world. Um, and I'm yeah, I don't have a Roomba. I should have one, but you know, maybe one day. As a
But
roboticist, you need a Roomba.
Roomba is also not that expensive now. It's quite used.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There's but one thing that Roomba does when it comes to robots that you use at home is the simplicity, because this
Hmm.
robot has just one task to do, and they made it so it can do this one task and do it well. And I think this is number one lesson for consumer robots, because there were lots of companies trying to do robots that would do everything, but
Yeah.
it's really complex, especially if you want, because there are companies that would try to use 6 degrees of freedom robot arms in a personal space. And I think this is hugely difficult. It's probably possible,
You
but
mean
it's
for homes or
for homes, yeah.
okay?
Yeah, but the robots needs to be huge, and it's quite expensive as well. But there's a recent project called from a company called Hello Robot, and
Hmm.
they try quite simple approach where they have just a robot base and a robot manipulator that's only, I think, 3 degrees of freedom. So it moves
Okay.
up and then extends forward, and then it has an end effector that's I think can move. I don't know if it can move sideways, but for sure it can move up and down.
So a
Uh,
Cartesian prismatic joint based robot.
yeah, basically, and so I like this idea because it's it looks simple, and simple is probably good for consumer robots.
Yeah. I think a 6 degree of freedom robot arm on a work desk would probably not everyone. I mean, people would be skeptical on having it, and also people
Yeah.
have like biases related to robots, so
Mhm.
probably that wouldn't be a good idea. But I mean, uh, if a smaller uh, robotic arm could be made available, then probably also uh, people would be more open. I mean, I think at one point computers are also not part of homes, and now every home has a computer. So probably having robotic arms, or the Cartesian type robot for workspaces, this could be the next thing. But by
Mhm.
when do we expect like such robots to have? Maybe we can have like more compact robotic arms that would be able to organize your desk, for instance. I don't know.
Mhm.
What is your estimation of by when we would have such kinds of robots for consumers?
Uh, that's a really good question. So I'm really not a fan of this idea, because, as I said, I like the when the robots do this one thing and do it well. And with this robots in unstructured environments, it will be pretty difficult to get this working. So, for example, one example you've probably seen is we have this sort of kitchen robot projects
Yeah,
where you have a robot that can, for example, flip a burger.
yeah,
So it's probably 6 degrees of freedom robot arm that just flips the burger, right?
yeah,
And so you are paying so much money to get the robot to do that, where you just could have like probably an oven that would do the same thing and would be
yeah,
much simpler and would cost way less money. Uh, so, but the robots like organizing your desks, assuming that it can work anywhere, I think we might be. My gut feeling is like maybe 5 to 10 years away, uh, because it's not just the of course the programming, the sensing is difficult, but you also need to make sure that it's safe,
yeah.
uh,
That's an important
because
aspect.
yeah, because you can on the robot arm you can have this pinch point, and if a kid puts a finger in a pinch point, it can damage the child, right? And also, well, if there is something going wrong with the software and the robot suddenly moves full speed for whatever reason, uh, everyone would have bad time most likely. So we need to ensure that safety certification is there, that the robot shouldn't be hackable in any way, because you could
Yeah,
also imagine there would be some actors that would try to take control of the robot that is in your home, and that's frightening actually to think about this, because one thing, if someone gets access to your computer, best case scenario, they can just use your camera, right?
yeah,
But if
that's right.
someone can operate the physical thing in your house, that can be more dangerous.
Definitely way more dangerous. Maybe
Yeah.
for consumer, consumer applications, soft robotics could be uh, you know um, something that could come more uh, early than normal
Mhm.
robots, the hard robots.
Yeah, it's quite exciting actually. There's one project. I don't remember how it's called right now, but it was an inspiration for the robot in the like animated film Big Hero 6, I think.
The
The big inflat
Baymax, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
BMX, yeah, exactly. So there is a robot that's kind of replicating that, and
Oh,
it's all soft body that's full of air. So that's quite exciting.
yeah. But I mean, even those robots there's quite some time before they would be for consumers, because again there are lots of issues to take care of regarding these. And yeah, I mean, even for a robot like Baymax, I guess you would also have to deal with, whether it's doing the activities effectively, and whether people are also damaging it or not, how people are operating
Yeah.
it. That's also another aspect that
Mhm.
is important to consider.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest challenges in soft robotics, as far as I know, is the precision, like the control of the precision, because with the soft joints, you are not so sure where you are as with an electric motor. So
Yeah.
this is one of the biggest challenges that would need to be solved.
Yeah, and how so for a normal robot, you would have like for a 6 degree of freedom robotic arm, you would easily know the joint angles, using inverse and
Yeah,
forward kinematics and everything. But for a soft robot, it would be more difficult.
yeah, exactly.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed part 1 of the conversation with Matt. In this talk, we talked about his beginnings in the field of robotics, what got him inspired, what are the variety of different projects and unique experiences that he has had pertaining to the field of robotics and drone development. In the next talk, we'll dig a bit deeper into each and every single project that he has done and try to understand what goes on in building a robot from scratch. We'll also talk about how you can learn robotics on your own with the resources available online. What are the skills that you would need to develop to be a proper roboticist, and a variety of different interesting things that Matt has to share with us. If you're interested in listening to these kinds of things, I'd encourage you to subscribe to this podcast and hit the bell icon so that you get notified on time when the next part is released.